Hello everyone, welcome back to Kazaka. This is our dad Steve, and it's his birthday today, so we wanted to make him a custom PC. When I was looking to put this together, it was mostly because I figured you might be able to use it for work, because you have your Chromebook that they gave you through school, but also if you wanted to, you could throw in a graphics card and play some games on this. Honestly, some pretty good games, because you have the i3. This is the i3-6100. i3 is sort of just Intel's. It kind of determines the power of the processor, but there are plenty of i3s that are stronger than i5s, i5s stronger than i7s. It's just, for the most part, i3s are going to be sort of the lowest end of the i series, and there's Pentium and Celeron, but that doesn't matter. i3s, this is kind of really plenty for like web browsing and the work you do for grading classes and stuff like that, but also it'll be plenty for lower resolution games. On that screen, obviously, if you moved up to a 1080p screen as well. And then storage drive, I already had this. This is 300 gigs, I think, just a small 2.5-inch drive. That'll be plenty for whatever you're going to use. 4 gigs of RAM, actually that's going to be plenty for any games, even going to 1440p, except for some more CPU-bound games like strategy, real-time strategy games. But for any sort of work you'll be doing, that'll be fine. So this motherboard, because it's locked i3, you can't overclock this processor. I own it with the H110M ITX PC from ASRock. It's a really nice budget-oriented motherboard. It's also the H110. If it were a H170 is a step up, and then Z170 allows you to overclock, but this is not. This is locked, so you can overclock it.
So overclock would be like kind of with a carburetor that you can't.
It'd be like the governor.
The governor. Thank you. That's the word I was trying to think.
Yeah. So there's a governor on here, so there's no reason to get an overclocking motherboard. The case, I think this was like $20. It's a Rosewell. Not sure exactly what, but it's yeah, I made sure I have this because we have a Corsair H60 water cooler. Definitely not necessary. This is more for overclocking, but we were talking about radiators, and I was talking to you about water cooling for custom loops, and so I figured why not get one of these just for kicks. Maybe spending $60 extra is not the wisest choice of it just for kicks, sort of for fun thing, but I thought it'd be nice, and I decided it was worth it.
And I would say that's one of the biggest changes in the past decade is water-cooled computers.
Yeah.
And how often do they fail?
These ones, almost never. Typically, if it's going to fail within its lifetime, it's usually early on. I mean, who knows if this works, but I don't think it won't work.
And if it fails, it's going to probably fail early. And,
yeah.
Okay.
I am going to have this run with this going for a while before we do any actual work with this, so I can make sure it's not leaking.
Okay.
The power supply, 430 watts, is more than you're going to need for the system, even if you put in a graphics card.
So it doesn't run 430 watts, but it can if it wants
this
to?
can send up to 430 watts to your system.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think that this system here is going to?
On PC Part Picker, it listed it at I think 236. I don't know why that number's stuck in my head, but it might be like 200.
So it's right in the middle of what it could do.
Yeah, actually that's ideal because for some reason running power supplies at about 50-60% capacity gives you the most efficiency. I'm not sure exactly why, but that's been tried and tested. But,
that's going to be the largest difference between computers 10 years ago is the monitors look like a big TV set, a basic cube, 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot, weighing approximately 300 pounds.
This is even, I mean, this is an old, basically a piece of junk monitor for anybody who, for me, I wouldn't buy this. It's low resolution, really heavy, but it's very solid for any kind of workstation stuff because it's just.
So it's not just the size that's limiting, but also the number of pixels?
The size, the resolution, the refresh rate, the response time, and then there's some other things as well, like whether you can mount it to a Visa arm or something like that.
So there's multiple ways to measure monitors rather than just size.
Yeah.
So there we go. Not just size matters.
Alright, so here it is. We did a bit of troubleshooting, but now Windows 10 is up and running, and after a few more updates, it'll be ready to go. Okay, Dad, so you've had this for one night, built it last night. What do you think of it?
Well, it's black, it's pretty shiny, has a nice blue and sometimes red blinking light. That's been fun. It also has some color in the screen. That's fun. Some of the computers I built had monochrome monitors, so to have different colors is exciting. Also, the interface, it makes it much easier to tell about system updates and what's happening on board. So that's been very encouraging, even though I haven't touched it yet.
So what's different about this system than the systems that you used to build?
Well, the biggest difference would be how big and fast they are. They can hold much more, and they're much faster, so a factor of about 1,000 times bigger and faster than the machines we had 10 or 20 years ago. The Wi-Fi is new. We had nothing that was wireless, so that's been fun and exciting. And lastly, probably the graphics interface has been much easier for the regular user to interact with the machine as far as system and the updates, etc.
And of course, the radiator.
Yes, the radiator. So it's kind of like going from a Volkswagen to a Chevy, where now we have the water-cooled as opposed to the air-cooled. So that's been definitely a hurdle because I didn't know if I could trust having water running around in my computer.
So you talked about how different it was, but how similar is it to what you used to do?
Well, except for the interface, so much more color, they're very similar. I could, for the most part, point out the different parts that we used. And so yeah, for the most part, from 20 years ago, the parts are the same. It's just the speed and the capacity of those parts that's different.
So we talked about the physical components, but what are some of the difference in the software?
Well, I think the difference in software is shown by the screen. With now having so much greater quality video and greater quality pictures in general, the biggest difference was we only had black with one other color. And along with that, you had to know the language of what you were trying to code. Whereas now we're prompted with questions, and then with a mouse, we can go ahead and click anywhere on the screen to pick some choices.
Action. Hey guys, we're back at the studio here, and before we sign off, we just want to say a couple things. First off, we're really excited that the radiator worked because we had no idea how that was going to work. And also, I wanted to make the point that this was a limited budget. It was just as cheap as I could make it without limiting it in terms of being able to play 1080p games if he decides to do that. When working with a budget like this that's pretty limited, you're almost guaranteed to run into some issue or another when you're putting the parts together where there's something that you just have to do that is nerve-wracking, and it takes a lot of patience. That's absolutely doable, but there are going to be some very annoying things with any build that is similarly limited in budget as this one. And you saw that when we had to put in the Wi-Fi cable.
You didn't even see that.
Yeah, we didn't.
I didn't have the patience to record that part of it because it was, like I said, nerve-wracking, and it tried my patience.
So that was fun.
Yeah. As always, later, nerds.
I don't know.
See you later, nerds.